thanks so much for being here. It is an immense pleasure for me to be sharing this stage with these outstanding professionals. But first of all, apart from thanking you all, I just want to thank the Global Legal Tech Hub guys. I don't see if you're over there, sorry for that. But basically, it's, I'm thrilled to be here after all these months of really, really hard work. And when I say these months, just to put you in context, in the meantime, Albert had a baby, so you can imagine how long it took to us just to organize this. But I also want to thank Sarah and Laura. You just saw Laura in here, and you saw Sarah yesterday. They have been my partners in crime to make this happen. And basically, over all these months, what we have been discussing, normally on Friday afternoon meetings, I have to confess. So what we have been discussing is basically which topics were going to be really interesting for this audience. Because when we speak about legal tech, digital transformation, sometimes it's like the same topics are being again and again discussed. And we were thinking, how can we really add value to this conversation? So it came to our mind that the distinction between legal tech and tech law was really a thing, because with this disruption that we are all living, sometimes you hear concepts, you say words, but you don't really understand what those mean or what each of those words imply. So we definitely thought it was going to be a good idea to have this table, and then obviously I'm really, really happy to be sharing the stage, well, even virtually, with these masterminds. So thank you so much, guys, for being here. Let me quickly introduce you to them. I do have Desi with me, so that's also why I was putting the logo in here. Desi makes me feel like home in here. She also comes from Clifford Chance. She's leading the tech group at a continental European level, while she's also a partner in our corporate team. She's also a mom, so basically, pretty impressive. And then on the screen, directly from Serbia, we do have Srdjan. I have to confess, the first thing I asked Srdjan when I met him was like, am I pronouncing your name correctly? Sorry for this, so Spanish. But yeah, we do have Srdjan, who is the founder of Legal Transformers, and also has a background as a lawyer, also as myself. We were making jokes about us being recovering lawyers. But he also leads the Legal Hackers chapter in Eastern European countries. So, just setting the expectations for this roundtable. Thank you so much, guys, for being here with us. And now that we set the scene, please, Desi, let us know what you would say, what tech law really is, what it means, and what it implies.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Raquel, for the question. I'm delighted to be with you. Delighted to be with those who are online. I can't see, but that's the beauty of this new world. So, what is tech law? Not the most exciting question when you look at it, but actually, I can bet that many of you don't really make the difference between legal tech and tech law. Am I right? Maybe not. So, tech law, there is not really a definition, actually. I'll disappoint you. I have mine. My definition is that tech law is a comprehensive set of rules that are industry-driven or technology-driven. This is actually a fascinating combination of legal products, and I'll give a few examples. But before that, people need to think about legal tech and tech law as the two extremes of the same spectrum. It is technology. So tech law is really about framing it. Legal tech is about innovating. So tech law is there to give certainty and a frame to legal tech. A few examples, maybe. Data law, privacy, GDPR. Everyone have heard now about GDPR since the last 3 or 4 years. AI, for instance, cybersecurity. To give another example, IP, IT, cryptocurrencies. The list is endless. It is really can go and go on and go on. There are some key criteria that apply when it comes to defining tech law. First of all, it is supposed to be industry specific, meaning that actually deals with concepts which are new to the legal community. I'll give an example here. What about digital sovereignty? You know, it's a topic we hear from the European Commission. Is that a legal topic? Well, it is. It has become, because technology at the European level does deal with issues around sovereignty and how we achieve that in a balanced way. Second criteria is about using concepts we are familiar with and we have been using for years without really having a specifically tech-related meaning of these. Lola was talking about soft becoming hard. An example here, ethics. So ethics is part of the soft law, but it has become part of the hard law with the development of the technology and development of the regulatory framework. There is a lot of debate ongoing currently around the Artificial Intelligence Act that the European authorities are preparing for entry into effect next year. Well, it will reflect principles around what is ethical. That's a new world. Or I'll use another example. Again, Lowell mentioned diversity. So diversity is not a legal term, but in the world of artificial intelligence, it has become a legal requirement because it is fighting against bias, against discrimination, and only trustful and human-centric AI can achieve that. An AI which is diverse and ethical. I'll give two more points before I hand over to you, Raquel. One is tech law is very often global. It's very exceptionally limited to one country or even to one region. Good professionals can be actually experts in that area only if they're global. And that's, by the way you mentioned the tech group at Clifford in Continental Europe. That's the way we deal with that. No one can cover everything, and no one can cover all countries, but it is about being global and joined up. And last but not least, it is developing at incredible speed. Every day, we were talking yesterday, by the way, currently we have 30 proposals the European Commission made on the tech field that are being discussed at the level of the European Parliament, at the European Council, and they will become reality next year. How challenging it is for our clients, for companies, for players and stakeholders in the world to cope with that. It is very challenging, hence the importance to be at the forefront and being anticipating. And anticipation is at the heart of what tech law is about, not waiting for that to become reality, really being there much earlier. That's a short, tentative definition of tech law, but a lot to say.
Thank you so much, Desi. And well, this is great because you mentioned it's like the two sides of the same thing, definitely. So, Srdjan, do you want to add what legal tech means now that we know this is an area?
Okay, thank you, Raquel. I hope you can hear me and see me all right.
Yes.
Because I can't see anyone, so I'm going to kind of go on blind a little bit here. But essentially, I think this topic is super important because I believe that in the future, tech law and legal tech will converge and will align with each other. But that will be a topic for a bit later. So essentially, what I want to do is bring your attention to two definitions that Wikipedia has. One is the definition for legal tech, and the other one is the definition for fintech, which, according to a lot of people, is referred to as the legal tech's big brother, right? So essentially, legal tech can be described as using software to provide legal services and support the legal industry. While, for example, Wikipedia defines fintech as use new cutting-edge technology to compete with existing business models in the financial industry. So, you know, just contemplating on the difference between these two definitions kind of give us a glimpse why fintech has made, you know, according to some people, more disruption to the industry than legal tech. So basically, I firmly believe that the legal service powered by technology and bespoke, traditional legal service, they're not mutually exclusive. On the contrary, I believe that law firms, especially big law firms, have a historic chance to use different tech-based business models and with combining their powerful brands to not only penetrate the premium market that they're already focused on, but to take a big chunk of the mid and low-cost market as well. So if you think about it, before, once upon a time, before technology, before, AI, blockchain, and all these different buzzwords, you couldn't have access to a scalable legal service. Well, for example, using software as a service, using different business model, you can now have a scalable legal service, a more insightful legal service, a more efficient legal service. And I truly believe that this again is a historic chance to take advantage of that. Because again, if you think about it, somebody will do it sooner or later. It can be a legal tech company, it can be a big tech company, don't exclude that, or it can be another big law firm that will, change the game with one or a few new tech solutions. So I believe that, again, a traditional, very personal legal service that kind of depends on the person, combining with the new user experience the technology can bring is the right combination. And, when I said, because I do a lot of trainings for lawyers and general counsels across Europe, and what I like to do is give a thought experiment. So what would happen if big tech companies such as Amazon, Google, Apple, jump in the legal services arena, right? They have, almost unlimited resources. They're very well known for business diversification. And why wouldn't they want to take a chunk of a almost $1 trillion annual industry, right? And I'm going to finish with this. And at first it sounded a bit funny, right? Because obviously the legal industry is very regulated. Only lawyers can provide legal services and so on and so forth. And again, for example, in UK with alternative business structure, this is changing a little bit. But I thought to myself, the taxi industry wasn't disrupted by a taxi company. It was disrupted by a tech company. So I wouldn't underestimate the power of technology to kind of make things more interesting in the legal services market as well. So if there's Apple Pay, they enter the financial services market, why there wouldn't be an Apple Law? So again, this is just a thought experiment. This is not something that, it's gonna happen tomorrow, whatever. But I believe that, again, that if big law firms, or even like, just say legal service providers, think about the potential and the market expansion they could kind of apply, and the market part they could conquer with technology, to me, is amazing.
Can I just quickly react? Because I can't agree more, and I'm sure you will be also giving some examples on how it will help. There is another interesting trend I see on the market related to tech and the development of tech and legal tech. Actually, the way legal service providers operate has changed recently, and it is changing and will be changing in the coming years. It's a little bit back to the point I was making. I think it's over approaching technology in silos, meaning no one wants, and at least I see clients less and less really desiring to see that, no one wants advice being provided in silos. Great advice provided by experts, but in silos, meaning not adopting in a comprehensive manner, kind of covering all approach. And this is where lawyers had to become much more creative, much more open-minded, quicker, and actually adopting the pace of development of the technology itself and the way we communicate with clients. And some of the names that Srdjan mentioned, the reality is that their needs have changed, so you can't anymore advise in the traditional way if you want to be really efficient and helping these organizations.
No, yeah, you're completely right, and thank you both for mentioning on the efficiency bit, because definitely And well, I mean, I know Clifford because I work here, but I know many other players in the legal industry that are really focusing on that, but not just efficiency as, again, another buzzword. Like when you say efficiency, what does it mean? Well, for us and for the legal sector, what efficiency should mean is providing the best advice to your clients by all the means that you do have. So basically, many of you in the audience and listening to us may know, in Clifford Chance we have implemented what we call the Innovation and Best Delivery Strategy, which is basically about best delivery, as the name itself says. It's looking to provide your clients with the most efficient advice, technology, whatever that you do have in hand. And I think it's important also to mention this, because this is not something, I mean, yes, we've been proactive, but this is not something that we just said one day, okay, let's do this. No, it's because there's a tendency coming from clients, and they are demanding that. They are asking us to do this. When we receive an RFP, there's increasingly a percentage of, hey, I want to know what you're doing in the field of efficiency, of innovation, of legal technology, of legal project management. They want this. They are asking for this. So, I mean, how are you not going to provide them with this? And yes, you were saying, I mean, if we work with Amazon, for example, I mean, you shouldn't be providing a different advice to Amazon France, Amazon Spain, Amazon Italy. It doesn't make any sense. So you need to be consistent in what you're doing. But yeah, I mean, I do have this tiny bit of knowledge coming from Spain, but can you please, Desi, let us know, like, what's the tendency that you're perceiving from clients in this regard?
Yeah, well, the example you were giving is actually a perfect example of how the legal industry is transforming. It's just one more industry that is going through a technology transformation. And of course, law firms are transforming themselves too. But just to the point you were talking about, Raquel, actually what we see on the market is an increasing expectation for what Legaltech or best delivery or the greatest innovative tools and systems we can offer or platforms to our clients, how we can combine that with the legal advice, the most efficient, as you said. But what is fascinating there is that efficient is defined on a case-by-case basis, because there is no such a thing as one size fits all. The tools you develop as an organization or as a law firm, for instance, they will not all fit for the expectations of a given organization. This being said, indeed, any RFP, RFI we see currently actually does request us to plan for the tools and for the efficiency leverage we can put in place. But this goes also with the legal side of it. Obviously, opportunities and risks. So, to take an example like a platform a client can use working with us, covering all countries in Europe or globally. It is wonderful because it makes sharing of knowledge, information, monitoring the project much more efficient, quicker. But at the same time, it does raise a number of questions that the legal community needs to deal with. To take the example of the platform, data privacy, right? It's not enough to put in place a platform. Actually, it goes with multiple regulatory constraints. At times, it's not easy, by the way, to do that in a friendly manner without making things too complex. Data privacy is one example. Another one is consumer law. You can potentially be exposed to some risk in this respect. What about IP? What about the IT system, outsourcing, subcontracting to others? What about regulatory constraints? And I was mentioning Europe earlier. We have a number of regulations that come and apply to these tools. Cybersecurity. We have 3 new regulations that are coming, and we had so many more before, but they need to be taken into account when it comes to developing all these nice tools. And when you do deal with this, you need to deal with this globally. So Europe, country-specific, globally, US, Asia, all that together. Because one thing is obviously the legal framework, and we as professionals have to comply with this, but it is more than that. It's actually about trust. This is key for our clients. being compliant with the technology law is not anymore the real challenge. They got it now. Companies know they need to comply with GDPR, whatever regulation is coming in the tech field. But they now have the challenge and the opportunity to transform that into a real competitive advantage by leveraging trust. And trust is really trusting the tools you are using, the way you disrupt the advice you are providing, how you provide it, what are the shortcuts you can implement, what are the cost savings you can achieve. There are many, but if you don't do that with systems and tools which rely on very strong legal framework and safety, as was mentioned previously, actually you are designed to fail.
Yeah, no, and actually this makes me think of the first conversation that I had with Srdjan. It was really interesting, the distinction he made on this legal transformation from a business side and then from an institutional side, which I think it's also, two sides of the same coin, let's say it that way. So if you can, Srdjan, explain a bit more on that. Yeah, I would say both, but specifically on the institutional side, because I think it's also interesting. We listened yesterday to someone coming from the government, actually, in Spain, and that was really insightful. But this is not just happening in Spain. I mean, it's happening everywhere. So if you could please, Srdjan, let us know about these institutional sides in particular, or the distinction that you made.
I remember the conversation, and I couldn't agree more that it's not only, again, the business and the institutional side are interconnected. For example, the Legal Transformers, the company I founded and manage, also advises legal departments and law firms how to make their internal and external processes more efficient. But it's not just, again, it's not just about efficiency, as we concluded. So it's not just making internal processes more efficient, how the legal service is being created, but it's also how it's being delivered, right? So what I'm saying about the business aspect is that I firmly believe that it still needs to be the lawyer's knowledge, right? It's still your know-how, it's still your experience, but with tech superpowers, right? So essentially, what I believe, and that's from the business side, but also from the institutional side, that legal tech, especially, let's say technology in general, can make even legal profession more human. Let me give you an example. So I talked to my friend, his partner at a big law firm from Denmark. They implemented an IP bot that kind of dealt with a lot of administration-related tasks, which gave the law firm more time to commit to their clients personally. So let's call it a client care, right? So you're focusing on what you do best, and basically focusing on what humans do best, and leaving the rest for the robots is, in my opinion, the way to go when it comes to the legal tech narrative. And when it comes to also the institutional side, I honestly believe that legal tech, especially from the aspect of access to justice, can help society as a whole interact with legal services in a different way. So we all have our rights. A lot of people are not even aware of the rights they have, and it's super expensive to kind of hire a lawyer, obviously, in large part of, for example, Western Europe. And I believe this can also help the society as a whole to kind of advance. But what I'm referring to when it comes to the institutional part is, we need to raise awareness of how technology can truly help without getting into the buzzwords, right? And the core idea is aligning the value that the specific technology brings with the needs of the client. So there was, I remember there was a conference, and we had it was actually a Wolters Kluwer report a couple of years back that above 70% of legal professionals say that blockchain and AI are going to disrupt the legal industry. However, 24% of them know what blockchain and AI truly are, right? So essentially, what I also want to emphasize is the importance of the educational part. So educating the market from law students to professionals, to legal professionals, lawyers, and so on. What can technology do for them? So in a nutshell, I provided, my company provided consulting. We developed legal tech tools. We also provided educational services, and in a nutshell, there's a lot of work to be done in order to kind of facilitate the application of legal tech worldwide. But again, this is a process. Nothing happens overnight.
You know, it's really interesting that you mention on the process bits, because one of the things that we also do at Clifford and we take real care of is continuous improvement. And definitely this institutional side, you were mentioning already, Desi, all the legislations that are about to be passed and everything else. But how do you see this from, and I also remember the conversation that I had with Srdjan on law by design. Oops, we lost Srdjan? Oh no, you're still there.
We found him.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we were we were discussing, I was referring to you and you disappeared. We were discussing about the law by design and the law by default, which I think it's a really interesting topic, because how do you see it, Desi, from your perspective? Like, I mean, to me, it feels like first there's the technology, then there's the need coming from clients. When I say clients, I mean everyone in the legal sector, and then there's the legislation. So you were saying something on trust. I mean, how are you gonna trust or even use a platform or buy it or whatever if there's not something behind kind of regulating it? So I think this disruption has speed up a lot in terms of legislation, but if you could explain a bit on that, and then I will go back to Srdjan, because I think as well this law by define and law by design or something like that, it's something that we all think we know what it means, but we don't really know. So please, Desi, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I like your example. Legal by design, ethical by design, privacy by design, human by design. we hear all these buzzwords, and they're all very relevant actually, but what they mean. And back to the point Srdjan was making, people actually don't really know what all this means very often. Taking the example of AI that was just mentioned, if you look at the proposal the European Commission made a year ago about the AI Act, so a regulation which will apply everywhere in Europe and actually beyond Europe, I'll come back to that, there was such a hot debate around the notion of AI. And then we realized that there is not such a thing as one definition. And so we can have multiple definitions, and basically even a tendency of people to put in AI pure algorithm or software, and hence regulating that. But can you imagine actually the impact that can have a wrong definition or too extensive definition, or just not coping with the pace of development of technology, combined with a set of very stringent rules that will apply for decades going forward? The impact can be huge, not only for a region like Europe, but globally for the world. So now to your question about regulations and pace. Everyone who has been involved in the technology world knows that there is usually regulation is considered to be very slow, too slow. So by the time regulators adopt a regulation, actually the technology is already far more developed, and hence the regulation is not anymore fit for purpose. That is true. To some extent, it is impossible to adopt the same pace of development as the technology itself has. To take the example of Europe, a few years ago, the European Commission announced their strategy to build digital strategy and digital sovereignty in Europe. And it was about a number, actually a very, very high number of regulations which combined were designed to cover and to enable a safe development of technology in a framework giving certainty and hence trust. Because it all goes back to the point of trust. The European Commission So there were comments saying that's great, fantastic, bold decision, Europe is leading, we'll be setting the standard, and then the rest of the world will need to follow. There were others saying, you are guys over-regulating, you are actually penalizing European commissions because there are far too many rules requiring extensive resources, extensive investments, and hence this is not pro-innovation thing. Interestingly, we did a survey and we interviewed more than 1,000 C-level executives at the global level. And then the data that came from this survey was quite interesting because we know Europe is kind of a first region in the world regulating in the tech field. I guess, well, at least by now you know it, given how many times I'm saying it. But we didn't know that actually European leaders were amongst the highest trust level players on the market. So we established a clear link between actually intense level of regulations and then feeling of certainty and trust for companies to innovate. This is all wonderful. Actually, the balance between innovation and regulation is not easy to strike. And there are some regulations in the making currently which attract a lot of attention in Europe, which will be dealing with things which have become absolutely crucial for the technology world, like data, but not data privacy. GDPR is behind. Really data. How do you monetize data? How do you transfer data beyond the European Union? You probably have heard about all the court decisions preventing companies from doing that in a flexible way. Also another topic, cyber, connected Internet of Things. Cyber resilience, artificial intelligence, but also liability of the artificial intelligence system. How do you deal with that? So there are a set of rules in Europe. They are being adopted. Is that quick enough? Certainly never enough. But it is designed in a way to be future-proof, meaning that it is based on concepts which are supposedly adaptable to future developments. I tend to think that actually that's not over, and that the regulations that we are adopting still will need to cope with the pace of development of the regulation itself. And to give an example here, last year you have heard probably a lot of discussions around the DMA, Digital Market Act, and the Digital Services Act in Europe. It was really about regulating the digital market with a very extensive approach and modernizing the regulatory framework after the e-commerce directive, which is now 22 years old. So it was an update was really needed. These were adopted, they're reality, but they are still not in effect. So when you look at what is happening with Twitter and Mr. Musk saying, we'll not moderate any more disinformation related to COVID on Twitter because the DSA, the Digital Services Act, is not yet into effect, that's where you realize actually the speed of development is never sufficient. And that's the reality. But we have to be realistic, actually, given the complexity and the impact of the regulations that are being adopted, the need to educate stakeholders and to educate the regulators themselves, and we are trying to help in some instances. Actually, these regulations do require thorough process, involvement of stakeholders, input, and this also explains that it takes quite some time. But what I can say, and I'll conclude my answer, is actually what we are going through currently will end up in a situation where there will be a before and after on anything related to digital in Europe and above. Why is that? Because we have an unprecedented number of regulations coming. They have all extraterritorial reach, meaning that they will impact players around the globe, not only Europeans, and they go for sanctions, which we saw with the GDPR for the first time 4 years ago, but they will be adopting the same with percentages of the worldwide turnover of players. So what I can predict is that it will be shaping the future of the industry in the world.
Okay, and you weren't seeing us, Srdjan, but I was seeing you like saying yes all the time. So I think you do have something to add to what Desi was just saying.
Sure.
Yeah. First of all, very well said when it comes to the, let's call it the inflation of regulations. So we have a lot of regulations coming our way, and being mindful of that, we developed a special platform that can that enables legal professionals, especially lawyers, to create bots that help organizations be compliant with any regulation in the world, covering the entire process from gaps to 100% compliance. And I completely agree that this is going to be a challenge. And again, I believe that technology is one of the, I'd say, key ways to tackle that challenge. But just a minute to kind of reflect on the intersection between law tech and tech law. So basically, how Desi explained it as well. So the law is always the facilitator. Law is never the creator. Technology is the creator. Technology creates new social relations, new habits, new behavior of people, right? But the law always facilitates. It comes after. So, when the dot-com boom and the internet boom gave us technology or new technology opportunities, connected the world, the law gave us terms of service, end user licensing agreements, and so on and so forth. But now we have Web3 technology, such as the metaverse, such as blockchain, and other different systems. So, just having that in mind, I believe that the law will become more automated and self-enforced in the future. So again, this has been part of my research. I published a paper on it, and as part of the European Legal Tech Association, as part of both my companies, I'm seeing this every year. Is that the computer code and the legal norm will become two sides of the same coin. So if we have, and we talked about it, privacy by design, by default, that basically means that the legal norm is implemented in the software architecture, right? So, I was a part of a meeting where a cybersecurity specialist said GDPR is not a legal issue, it's a technical issue. I was like, okay, that's not true, and I started like lawyering it. But essentially, when he dropped me a Excel sheet with all the requirements for the ISO 27701, I saw that there are a lot of technical requirements that need to be kind of fulfilled in order for you to become GDPR compliant. So again, I believe that with self-enforceability, with blockchain, with Web3, we will witness an age where law will be self-enforced. So before you start the car, it won't be able to start before you take a test for alcohol, for example. Or let's say you want to rent a car, and after your subscription expires, the engine will give you a notification that it won't start anymore. So again, I believe that this will also result in different roles for lawyers and legal professionals in the future. But, all in all, very exciting times ahead.
If I may react to that,
Yeah,
I
sure.
do agree part of...
No, go ahead. I mean, we still do have 4 minutes, so I would say a sentence as food for thought for the audience. But already you did like hashtags all over the conversation, but yeah, I think
Okay,
Srdjan is in and out.
I'll
Go
use
ahead.
my comment to Srdjan as also the wrap-up comment. But
Perfect.
true that part of law will become automated, and that's the good news, because we don't want to focus on things which have become totally like day-to-day, slightly boring, still time-consuming things. That's not about that. Law in tech is about something different, and that's why it is so fascinating for us to be part of the game. It is about typically advocacy. I gave the example of the AI Act, of the AI Liability Directive. This is all to come. No one can help and actually shape the strategy of a company, how company will need to become involved, to raise voice, to shape the future of the regulation, to take strategic decisions, because what can't become automated is really about shaping the strategy. Back to my point, it's not about compliance. It's over. Compliance obviously needs to be there. I think we all know it. It's really about being at the forefront of the industry. And it goes with strategies which are much more ambitious than being compliant. Because compliance, there is no choice, basically. You can automate. But being strategic, being first mover, shaping what is happening is actually does need human intervention and can't be automated. So it is urgent to think about human-led strategy in this field.
Okay, and 30 seconds for you, Srdjan, as a wrap-up.
Well, as a wrap-up, I think both technology and like just personal effort are not enough. We need both, right? And if I have to choose which one will lead, it's definitely human-based. I believe that legal tech is and should be definitely human-centric. And what Desi referred to is, I also agree on that. We just need that. It's not the matter of if, it's the matter of how. How will we do that? And yeah, I look forward to the ride.
Okay, so thank you so much. And well, as a wrap-up on my side, I still have 1 minute. I would say we started the conversation saying legal tech versus tech law, but actually I wouldn't say a versus, I would say and tech law. So there's a huge opportunity for all of us on this field. And thank you so much, Srdjan. Thank you so much, Desi, and thank you so much to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.